I think people get tattooed because, there's not a lot of real stuff left in the world, and it's all like a 24-hour news cycle. Nothing lasts. With tattooing, it's blood, it's pain, it's permanence. When you get that needle in your skin for the first time, you have to be there. You can't just call it in. You have to sit there and take the pain, and then sit there and heal it, and then you got to live with the consequences of your action. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today's going to be the part 2 follow-up to my video a couple of episodes ago about how I came into tattooing, my history of tattooing, that kind of thing, which was the European, North American version. This is going to be the Japan edition, explaining my relationship with Japan, how I came to go there, visit there, get tattooed there, all that kind of stuff. So, I'll get right into it. When I first started tattooing, there wasn't a lot of access to Japanese art at all. No internet, that kind of thing. It was in the late 80s, early 90s kind of stuff. And so, books were pretty much it, right? And yet, I lived in a small town at one point. When I first started tattooing, I was on Vancouver Island. And, there was not much around, right? So you might go to a library or a bookstore and you might find a couple of photos of some Japanese prints. And that was pretty much it. So I would try and reproduce like a geisha drawing or a samurai drawing or something like that, but there wasn't a lot to be had. And so, the access to that, if you didn't have a connection, you didn't have a big bookshop, that was pretty much it, right? You might see some stuff in the tattoo magazines at the time, like International Tattoo Art, or some of the biker rags that were like, incredible, mesmerizing, right? But you had no access to the original stuff if you didn't travel. And at the time, I wasn't really, I had no money. I wasn't about to go start traveling. So we'll fast forward a few years to the sort of late 90s. I've been tattooing for a while and stuff. And I had the opportunity to go to Tokyo with some friends for a party trip. So I went. We were raving in Yoyogi Park and hanging out in the Tokyo bar scene. And just for a few weeks, just having a big sort of a big holiday in Tokyo. And I remember being in a bar, a nightclub, middle of the night, and seeing this dragon tattoo on somebody. And I'd never really seen good tattooing at this point in my career yet. Because, it was a very different time, right? Again, no social media, no access. If you wanted to see an artist's work, you literally had to go to his studio, and go look at his portfolio in person. Very few artists had websites. I had a website probably from 95, 96. I had a very basic portfolio website. But very few artists had that. So if you wanted to see someone's work, you had to go to a tattoo convention they were appearing at and look at their portfolio, or you'd have to go to their shop and look at their portfolio. So it wasn't or you had tattoo magazines, right? But a lot of the good guys weren't putting their best stuff in the tattoo magazines because they didn't want to be copied. So you see some decent stuff, but seeing an awesome Japanese dragon made by a tattoo master in the flesh was it changed my life. It was mesmerizing, right? It really showed me what was possible with tattooing at the time, because I had no fucking idea. And so that stuck with me. It's still with me to this day, 25 years later, right? So I really realized that the Japanese were doing something that no one else really was at the time. So we'll fast forward again a few years, sort of stopped partying, got my shit together, and, I went traveling. And I remember, as I said before, the culture of tattooing was very much a pirate culture. People would copy Flash, trade Flash, photocopy images from books, that kind of thing. And I had this epiphany that, I needed to invest in myself, invest in my art, invest in my culture, invest in my colleagues. So, I would start buying prints and books and Flash. I remember buying, books off eBay from Crystal Gomaneko. She was a big Japanese bookseller at the time. She was a woman living in Tokyo at the time. It was making a lot of tattoo books available to tattooers. Because at that time, the only way you could get Japanese books was to go to Japan. I did that several times. It's like a pilgrimage, or it used to be, right, for people that wanted Japanese tattoo books. You know, you'd fly into Tokyo. You'd probably have to get a guide. I had my friend Magumu, he would take me. And we go to Jimbo Joe, which was the book neighborhood. It was just a neighborhood just of bookstores, like rows and streets of bookstores. All manner of books, not necessarily tattoo books or art books, but he would know which stores to go to, where the section was. You know, obviously, if you can't read Japanese, you have no idea, right? So he'd know and he'd ask, and I'd go there and I'd buy freaking suitcases full of Japanese books, thousands and thousands of dollars, and I still have all these books, right? But that was the only way you could get Japanese books at the time, because a lot of these books would never make it overseas, or if they did, they were in the hands of collectors who would never sell them. So prior to Crystal selling them on eBay, you had to go there, right? And so I did that several times and bring back lots and lots of books. And it was a great experience because you get to see all sorts of stuff you couldn't even afford. The books for $2,000-3,000 American dollars, rare out of print Kuniyoshi books that were just mind blowing, right? Or these crazy limited edition cloth bound volumes with big fold out prints of each design. I ended up getting a few of those down the track when I got a little more successful, but at the time it was amazing to see because you would never see anything like that ever except for in this particular environment. And so with all those books, I started getting really into the Japanese stuff. And my friend Megu as well, he would take me around to a few studios and introduce me to people. At one point, we all did a big tour with Crystal, with Gamaneko. We went to a bunch of studios. And I got to meet these Tabori masters. These Tabori masters that let us all, there was about 10 of us, all come in, watch him work. And we'd go for dinner with him and his crew and stuff. It was a very interesting time. I ended up meeting my friend Ichibei then at Three Tides Tattoo. And I got tattooed by him. I got these little dragons on my neck here. And he's not necessarily what you would call a traditional Japanese tattooer, although he does traditional Japanese tattoos. But he is a prolific artist. One of the most amazing drawers and artists and painters and talents coming out of Japan at the moment. People liken him to Kiyosai, the demon of painting, because he just produces so much stuff, and his tattooing is super clean and super good. So you can look him up, Ichibay, Ichibay, Hide Ichibay on Instagram. So getting tattooed with him was pretty cool. And then, I think the big highlight for me at that time was getting tattooed, I'd always been a fan of Horitoshi's work. The Horitoshi family had that real, black, tight backgrounds, really solid, really masculine work. And, he's a living legend, right? I've been tattooing for 40 years, 45 years at the time I met him. And this was meeting him and going to his studio, going to his little dojo, getting tattooed. I got a Hanya on my leg by him. By hand, all Tabori, was an incredible experience. And so this was part of my pathway into the Japanese world, right? Into taking traditional Japanese tattooing seriously and to the next level. I'd met Horiyoshi, Megu, again, thank you to Magumu, for taking me around Japan many, many times. I met Horiyoshi a few times. I went to his dojo, bought some prints off him, watched him work for a minute, and then down the track, my friend Alex, who was Horiyoshi's apprentice, he got me in touch with Horiyoshi to get my tattoo name, and that was probably the real pinnacle of my career at that point in time. So, I'd shown Horiyoshi my portfolio before. I'd gone in there with my book, humbly seeking critique. And I did this with Horitoshi as well. I think Horiyoshi was maybe a little kinder. Horitoshi was very critical, which was great because that's what I wanted, what I mean? When Horitoshi was looking at my book, he'd have a Sharpie and he'd just write on the plastic cover, like, nah, and some pictures just look at and flip the fucking page because it was not even worth discussing, So this is the kind of stuff I needed, right? I needed to be critiqued, and I wanted to be critiqued by the masters. I wasn't looking for compliments. I wanted to know what I was doing wrong, not what I was doing right. in terms of motifs and backgrounds and compositions and stuff. So, I kept that folder with all the critiques on, which was great, and then I did the same thing with Horiyoshi, and, he was a little gentler, but same sort of stuff, critiquing what I was doing wrong, which is what I was looking for. And then I arranged to go see Horiyoshi and get my Japanese tattoo name. So him and Alex came up with my name, which was Horisumi, and I have the original drawing, which is pretty cool, which I'll show you guys here, which is how, my last name being for real, the kanji for truth, and sumi is similar, so it became like, a play on my name, so Horisumi. It's kind of like Hori truth kind of thing, so Hori for real, I don't know. I don't speak Japanese, so I don't understand the nuances of it. So I went to Horiyoshi's studio. I got my kanjis for my name tattooed on him here, Horisumi, and then I got like a beautiful hand calligraphy thing of my name from him, and that's when I became Horisumi. That's when I took on that name, right? So that was pretty cool. And I guess getting that name after 20 years of tattooing really made me, I had to really, really, really take tattooing super seriously after that. I had a lot to live up to. I wasn't being rewarded with a name. I was given a name to live up to. That's the way I was looking at it. I wasn't, I still had to earn that name and still had to earn that honor. And so I still kept going back to Japan. Now, Horihide, Kazuo Oguri, Horihide, and Horiyoshi 3 are good friends. And so I'd met Horihide a few times at conventions, and he's, old school, friends with Sailor Jerry. He brought, electric machines to Japan. He brought colors to Japan from Sailor Jerry. And so I became friends with Horihide. And I started buying paintings off him and going to his dojo and hanging out with him and Gifu. And then through him I met Horikashi. He took me around to Horikashi's studio, and Horikashi and I became friends, and I got tattooed by Horikashi. And then Horikashi came to Australia and worked right here with me for a couple of months, over a year. And I learned Tabori from Horikashi. So this all sprung from earlier interactions in Japan. And then I published the book for Horikashi, as you guys might know. And so Horikashi and I are still friends. I believe he's coming out here in February to come do another guest spot. And then during all this, I started going to Sanja Matsuri as well. And I started partaking in that with my friend Horikazu. So I met Horikazu around the same time as I started hanging out with Horikashi. So I would go to Tokyo and Asakusa and hang out with Horikazu at his little dojo and watch him work. And his father, the original Horikazu, was a very, very famous and prolific tattoo artist. So Asakusa Horikazu is carrying on that tradition. And so he's very much involved in the Sanja Matsuri in that neighborhood. So that's how I got into doing Sanja Matsuri, was through him. So it's all these connections I had of constantly visiting and being around these people that really gave me my love and my passion for Japanese art, and this deep reverence I have for the traditions, right? And then at Sanja Matsuri, I met Horikyo and Horiken. I went to Horikyo's studio before he passed away and watched him work. And some of these guys were so open in such a closed, secret underworld. For some reason, I got this access to go and sit and watch them work for hours in their studios and ask questions and pick their brains a little bit, and that was great. This was before I was doing Tabori. I was hanging out at Horikyo's studio, and he's got a huge body of work, super traditional, no machines, outlined by hand, color shading by hand, and just incredible work and just an incredible tradition and lineage. And now he's got a bunch of apprentices out in the world. I'm friends with a few of those guys. So yeah, that's kind of my connection to Japan, of constantly going back and forth and visiting and hosting Japanese tattooers here as much as I can. I'd love to have, Ichibei come out here, and I'd love to have a few of the other guys come out here. Japan's just opened up again to foreigners, so hopefully we can go out and visit and get back into doing Sanjo Matsuri in May. Everyone's asking me when Sanjo Matsuri is, so I'll give you the quick Sanjo Matsuri blurb. It's usually the third week of May. It's not a tattoo convention, so don't think you're going to come out there and take your shirt off and, walk around the streets. It's a religious festival. It's a Shinto religious festival. So it took me a couple of years of going on the sidelines to be able to participate and do that. So it's very much you can come and watch. There's millions of people in the streets watching, and there's only one or two little neighborhoods that have the tattooed people partaking. The rest of it's just regular Japanese people doing the same stuff, the same rituals, doing all that kind of stuff. But it's just the little neighborhoods that have the tattooed participants, right? But you can definitely come and watch. But I don't think, if you don't know anybody, you're not going to be able to just come in and start participating in it. So just keep that in mind, right? And so, yeah. So that's my little Japanese tattoo story, and it's ongoing. I hope to get back to Japan soon. I'm still in touch with Horihide. I'm still in touch with Horikashi. I'm still in touch with as many of my Japanese friends as I can, with Ichibei and Megu. And, yeah, so that's the story. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of stuff. It's early in the morning here, but that gives you a little bit of an insight into my Japanese connection and how I got into it and stuff like that. I was fortunate enough the last time I was there, just before COVID, that after participating in a few years, I got my own happy coat from the crew there, which is cool. You can see a photo of it here. I was very proud to be given one of these, which is, for me, a huge honor. So I look forward to wearing it again, hopefully in 2023. I'll make it over there. So that's it for now, guys. Thanks for watching. Again, questions, hit me up in the comments or hit me up in the DMs. And I'll see you again next week. All right, guys? Thank you.